We found something in the charts that might shock you. Last time Bitcoin did this, it plummeted. Are we going to see a correction from $50,000? We got some shocking analysis here. Time to discover crypto.
Capital flight is coming to the United States. The dollar is going to zero.
And that's what makes Bitcoin so special.
You have to have gone through a couple cycles to understand.
Once the price is able to clear this level, the breakout is on its way.
This is your indication to jump in now.
How are we all doing today? Bob from accounting. Is it me? Is it just trying to find DC? Getting hard to find. Bob, I know you're in here all the time, so you know what? Maybe they're hitting that dial on crypto content, so we appreciate it. If you go ahead and hit that like button right now, make sure you subscribe. We bring you live content 5 days a week. We're putting out videos 7 days a week. But Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling good. You know, markets obviously having a little bit of a pullback off the CPI report, seeing a little bit of a bounce back there, but markets are feeling good. It's Tuesday morning. I think we're going to hold some significant support here at some levels that we'll get to later in this episode. But like you said earlier on, there are some very key indicators that could have honestly shown us that this was going to preemptively actually take place. So we'll be covering that in just a second. But I'm very curious. I haven't even looked at the markets yet in terms of the cryptos today because I was so amped up off the high from the, all of the green yesterday. Are we still looking good for the top 10? Are we seeing major pullbacks or is it just Bitcoin?
It is still looking good for Ethereum, at least. We have Ethereum is up 3.3%. But yes, Bitcoin is doing a slight correction. If we go to the 24-hour chart, you can see it right there. Just fell below that 50,000 range and is now, potentially bouncing back. We're going to continue to monitor Bitcoin and just see what's happening with the market. So Solana is up, BNB is up. There's really not much down except for XRP and Cardano. Avalanche is down 0.1%, but might, flip into the green pretty quickly here. But if you look at the weekly, it just kind of feels like a little bit of a healthy retracement. I mean, it's up 15% and down 1% on the 24-hour. Still a pretty good week here.
Can we just talk about XRP's price action for like the last month and a half?
The 50-cent stablecoin.
I'm pretty sure we went to 50K, then back down to 38K, and then back up to 50K, and XRP stayed at 1 to 2%.
It was like 52 cents, 49 cents, 51 cents. Yeah, well, meanwhile, Bitcoin's, having like 20, 30% fluctuations.
Wild.
XRP, 4% moves, here and there. But if we go to the biggest gainers, it's a Blur. Blur is leading the way. Mantle coming in with 7.5. Stacks, Say, Lightedal, Render. A lot of the coins we've been talking about.
Stacks at $2.13 now. That's insane.
That is pretty good. Ordi is up as well. Ordi is up 5.6%. Knocking on the door of 69 here. Flow is up 5.3%. Monero getting a little bit of a bounce. Are you going to say, Nick, just nice? Pretty nice.
Yeah,
right?
well, a year ago, what was Stacks at? Because this is a big deal.
We bought it at 46 cents. In July.
Okay.
46 cents.
Yeah, 1 year ago, you get Stacks for 30 cents. So you've seen a nice 7X, pretty much exactly. You're looking at a 7X there and plenty of time to accumulate this one, relatively cheap prices there. We hit max. Okay, we're getting close to some of these previous levels. So it topped out at $3 last cycle. What's the range going to be this time? I think $3 is FUD.
Dude, $10 Stacks is coming this cycle.
A lot of people saying 10.
I want to say that the TVL is like just starting to exceed itself, and Bitcoin layer 2s are finally getting that traction. It's like it hit those all-time highs last cycle with like no value locked on the network. It was still newly developed. It was still very clunky. We're getting a huge upgrade at the Bitcoin halving with the Nakamoto upgrade here around the Bitcoin halving. I am bullish on Stacks layer 2s.
All right. Stacks, one of the most volatile, in my opinion. Yeah, it is always in the top gainers or losers. But speaking of the top losers, we have Astar is down 5%. Bitcoin Cash and Caspa both are down. But look at Caspa's weekly there. Caspa is up almost 40%. I remember looking at that thing near a nickel, just waiting for that little bit. Oh, I wanted a little bit cheaper. And now, I missed out on almost a 3X right there. Actually, Infinity is down 4.4. Mina Protocol is down, but they are up 20% for the week. Beam is down. Beam is up 66% for the week. So we're seeing just a little bit of retracement. I did not have nearly enough Beam. Did you have any Beam?
I never picked up Beam. No, there's so many projects out there you wish you could just pick up, but you just can't.
There's too many.
And then chat's like mad at you. They're like, "How dare you not talk about this project?" I'm like, there is so many good projects now compared to 2021. Isn't like we're just looking at the top 100 and everybody like, okay, these are the 15 we're all looking at. Now it's like there's hundreds of projects and new things launching almost every single week. We had Dimension just launch. You had like people talking about, I forgot one video. I just did a Bitcoin layer 2 video and they're like, why didn't you mention Zeta Chain? I'm like, dude, that just launched as well. There's so many ICOs taking place, but Beam continues to crush it. Beam continues to crush it.
They had a great week. If we look at the weekly here, you have 66. And then the next best follower is Stacks, and then followed by Caspa,
I got you guys with that Stacks.
Pyth. I used to call it Pyth. I call it Pyth these days. But if we look at the big losers, it's been such a good week. There's only like 3 coins that are down. We have WeMix, and the other 2 are the more popular ones. Ronin is down, and Chili's is down. So I'm going to go check on Iran.
So does this mean these are like projects you don't want to touch in a bull market?
I will say if it had difficulty printing a green week this week, it might have difficulty, having a bullish period for the next 18 months. Now, I don't want to say anything, it could be short-term corrections, maybe a cliff unlock, but generally speaking, you don't want to see this.
Yeah, I don't want to. So Pendle, if you guys have seen this, I want to give credit to where it's due with Blockchain Basement here. We talked about this under $1 when I came on Blockchain Basement when I first came out here, but they had been talking about it for months before that, probably when it was like 30 to 50 cents, now up to $3. Pendle looks like it said, you know what? F Bitcoin. I don't care about all this volatility. I'm just going to have my entirely own bull run despite what you think is going to take place this cycle. So Pendle went from 30 cents here, 26 cents, up to $3. And this is just the last year here. And we called it in, I think it was November. It was about to break $1. And I had actually been reached out to by the team. And so I knew they were going to do a marketing campaign. I didn't end up taking it, but I was like on the show because we were out here. I was like, guys, get ready for this because they have a lot of money. They're going to invest into it. Just absolutely explode. So shout out to Blockchain Basement, guys. If you're not checking them out, they're talking about those DGen plays. You want to be following and subscribing that channel.
And I will say, we had a little bit of correction on some of the calls we made for Cardano. I was going to see what book had fallen, but it's only 1.7%. We gave you this one below a penny right now. That wasn't that long ago. I think it was like 45 days or 65 days ago right now. So I don't want to say this is the cheapest range you can get in, but it's we got a little bit of a correction. You might be able to get in a little bit lower than that though. All right. Well,
Morgan Powell with Superverse. Do you have any thoughts on Superverse?
Superverse. I'm bullish on Elio and Alex Becker's ability to reach audiences, and I think they put so much of their credibility on the line with these projects. They're going to work pretty hard to make sure they're successful. I know Virtual Bacon's, he's an early investor, so he's pretty bullish. I don't want to even say issue. I don't have any issue with Superverse. I want someone that wasn't an early investor to start talking bullishly on it. And I feel like a lot of the people that are like super bullish on Super, they got in early or, they're building in the ecosystem. I want to hear people outside the ecosystem talk about it. Nick, what's your thoughts on that take? I'm not trying to be bearish on Super. I think it's going to go up a lot.
On Superverse or just when to get in?
The fact that most people that love it are deeply ingrained within that ecosystem, and it's not so much like, I'm an outside person. I gave it my 2 cents, and I'm giving it my thumbs up, like you see with other coins.
Yeah, I know shockingly little about Superverse, so I'm not going to speak to its merit as a project or whatever. But it's a double-edged sword when you have influencers that are part of a project. Yes, they're putting their money where their mouth is. Okay, so they have a vested interest in seeing
skin in the game.
They've got skin in the game. Everyone here invests in coins where VCs have put money in and they have a vested interest in to see that going up. Have you heard of Avalanche? Have you heard of Solana? So it's not a bad thing, but am I going to tell a normie right off the street who's like just set up his Bitcoin DCA, hey, you should put $2,000 into Superverse? No.
Yeah. I pulled up the chart here. So for you guys that don't know, Superverse is like an NFT marketplace, I believe, with Elio trades, and they're focusing on Web3 onboarding and
NFT
developing
gaming,
games there. Yeah, a lot of NFT gaming, which
is
it's a huge narrative. It's a great narrative. But look at this chart from the yearly. I mean, it's just you're buying not into a green candlestick, you're buying into and hopping on a green dildo. So just make sure, guys, when you guys are watching these price actions
don't
and
threaten
stuff,
me with a good time.
Yeah, you don't want to. It is tempting, right? It's a very tempting to have a good time with that price action. But you guys just want to be cautious and just know you're coming into a top of rally there. And so that's where I used to say proceed with that caution. If you see a giant pullback and you really believe in it, you believe in the Web3 gaming, we'll check it out from there. But
I'll say this. That being said, your favorite gaming token is going to have Alex Becker talking about it to 500,000 people, 1.3 million people 12 months from now. Super is. And so, that's very hard to discount.
Elio averages like 100 to 200,000 views per video.
Yeah.
Like, great community, great audience. I've watched him for years at this point. very early to the gaming industry. But that does bring us into the first topic here today, guys. So I have a very interesting indicator I wanted to show you guys with the fear and greed index before we get to the massive topics of this episode. Of course, markets are reacting directly to the CPI report today, guys, that came out and bounced a little bit higher, which we're going to get to in just a second. But this is something I'm going to be doing a video on because I think a lot of people look over the crypto fear and greed indicator. They say it doesn't work, that it's for newbies. It's kind of just like irrelevant when you're doing exactly right. They're like technical analysts are like, well, there's no indicators and oscillators that are going to tell you, no, it's keep it simple. And if you use this indicator,
look at on-chain metrics.
yeah, exactly.
It's not talking about El Salvador.
Where's the MVRV? You're like, no, look, keep it simple, stupid. KISS method.
Percentages and profit.
And all of a sudden it turns into an astrology chart, just never ending. But guys, if you use this is a great indicator because it tells you when content creators are seriously too bullish or too bearish. And every time, I just made a video on this. I'm going to make one on the YouTube channel. But if it's in the red, that is heavy buy. If it's in the orange, that's dollar cost average. If it's in the light green, that's proceed with caution. So if you get a pullback, maybe you're making some short-term trades. Every time you hit this dark green zone, though, every time, which is about 80 to 100, it is going to be taking profits. And the last time we hit this 79 greed, which we hit yesterday, by the way, guys, we hit 79 greed yesterday, was in fact in the last bull run, October of 2021. Might have been November on the way down as well, technically, but it was the peak of both the second rally of last bull run as well as the all-time high in April of November. So you can see 79 right here at $62,000 Bitcoin. So when you get up to that 70 range, which is extreme greed, we haven't seen that in like over 660 days. And we finally just tapped that.
Wait a minute, over 660 days, not 6 days over,
no,
is it?
660 days. We haven't
Okay.
seen it. Yeah.
Josh, so here's a question. How many extreme greed days happen in a row before we can say it's like we're actually in the
Yeah,
So
so
that's
you
a
do it
great
day
question.
one. If you sold in October, if you waited 2 weeks, you maybe did a little bit better.
Yeah. So, this chart's going to be a little bit hard to read, but essentially when you're over that 70 level, you don't want to pay attention to all the gibberish in between, but I'm going to show you that at least the best buying opportunities and the best selling opportunities. When you're over 70, that's when you start hitting extreme greed. There's massive FOMO. That's generally when you got your Uber drivers and, people that have never touched finance in their life telling you to buy a project, is that 70 level. So if you're taking profits at that 70 range, if you look back, this goes all the way to 2018's bear market. Again, would have been a great opportunity to take those profits. Of course, you move into this bull run, etc. The best times to buy are essentially when it's under that 20 fear. Now, a really cool indicator I want to show you guys, though, is 20. We hit 20 a few times. We hit it in October 2022. If it looks like February, this is November 25th of 2022. So, of course, FTX. Notice how FTX didn't even bring that greed down. We actually saw that greed in June. That's the 13th of June, 2022. So FTX didn't even bring that fear all the way down to that 10 indicator. So the best buying opportunity.
Yeah, it was like the fifth exchange. We were just numb. We were numb.
What? Because 3 arrows, Celsius,
Terra Luna,
Terra Luna
the big dip is kind of the Terra Luna collapse. I want to say Terra, that was June. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it was May too. This is May 8th.
Yeah, so it's kind of taking effect, and people realize like, oh, I just lost all my UST. At that point, people were just kind of, I don't want to say dead inside, but it's the example.
Pretty dead, yeah.
It's the example I give all the time. It's the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan. We were all like ears ringing, tinnitus, holding our arm and just kind of looking around at the battlefield.
Yeah.
That was us. So we were just numb.
I remember when FTX actually collapsed and we're all like,
yeah. Is it tinnitus or tinnitus?
It happened.
I mean, you can't hear, so it doesn't matter.
Tinnitus, the ringing in the ear, right?
Yeah, who said
tinnitus.
that?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you look,
which is better, Hacksaw Ridge or Saving Private Ryan?
Saving Private Ryan.
Saving Private Ryan.
Wow.
But Hacksaw is newer though, technically. So the gore was probably a little bit.
I'm just saying, for
I don't even remember.
Raw, visceral war, like, did you feel more in a war in Saving Private Ryan or Hacksaw Ridge?
Oh, I would say Hacksaw, but I think Saving Private Ryan makes you think more about the weight of Normandy.
Oh, yeah.
But,
I think we digress. We digress. So speaking of the weight of Normandy, when it pulls down that pressure, that's terrible.
That was bad.
But below 10, guys, so below 20, if you had bought when FTX was collapsing and was at 20, that would have been a perfect opportunity. You would have actually bought the bottom. And of course, even if you bought when it was 10, It may have not have been the exact bottom, but that's the range you want to really go in heavy on those markets. And historically, if you went in under that 20 to that 10, you would be up massively right now. The rest of these ranges goes back to this chart right here, where you can go down to 30, you can go down to 40. But what I want to show you guys is something interesting. When we broke down from $50,000 after, yes, we broke from 50K roughly with the spot Bitcoin ETF. When we came down to 38K, we had tapped 48 on the Fear and Greed Index. So when you're in this orange range and you're in an uptrend and you're in a bull market, that could be the indication, and historically shows us that might be a good time to dollar cost average into that rally. So right now, I still think we're in a bull run, but we did hit that 79 greed, which we haven't seen in so long. So it only makes sense that we see that profit being taken, and that's why we're getting the pullback today.
All right, and yeah, great stuff right there. And yeah, we might put that out on YouTube, but is it a membership only? Is it on TikTok? Where can they see the other video?
That will be up late, probably tomorrow. I'm going to be working that video on YouTube as well, but we'll do one there's one in the Discord.
You guys get the early access right there. All right, well, let's talk about, speaking of early access, there's a billionaire, a secret billionaire secretly buying Ether and Bitcoin. And I say, you know, potentially one of the smartest billionaires out there. Before I get into the story, Nick, I'm sure you have strong thoughts on this guy. What's your thoughts on Peter Thiel?
As a openly gay Republican man,
he's libertarian.
He did. You're right. He is libertarian. True. He is, without a doubt, one of the most interesting and thought-provoking people. When you hear him give speeches, you can tell he's thinking at a very, very high frequency.
Yes.
And his takedown or his summation of the World Economic Forum is the best I have ever heard.
Okay.
Because he was a part of the World Economic Forum for several years, but he then quit. And someone asked him, and they said, "Why did you quit?" And he said, "It is not a truth-seeking organization."
Ooh, I love that. That is a very, very good phrase there. And yeah, Band of Brothers is goated. I mean, boy, did we hate Ross Geller in that show.
Yeah, we did.
All right, let's talk about Peter Thiel here. The former CEO and the founder of PayPal's fund has invested $200 million in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Before I get into the story, just quick beats on who Peter Thiel is for those who don't know. First, started PayPal, the first outside investor in Facebook. Have you seen Social Network? He was ahead of Justin Timberlake. You know, in that movie, Justin Timberlake, that guy was so early. It wasn't Tom, it was the other guy from MySpace. No, before him, first outside investor. I think first one outside of like Mark's aunt and uncle or something like that. Mark's parents there. Then he co-founded PayPal in 1998, serving as CEO until it sold to eBay in 2002. This is a little bit over summation here. He founded Confinity, that founded PayPal. PayPal absorbed X. X then made Elon Musk, or PayPal made Elon the CEO of PayPal.
Yeah.
When Elon was fired, Peter Thiel took over. So he was the dad that was brought in after the stepson, shat on the carpet.
So he's part of like the original. Is he the Don of the PayPal Mafia?
He is the Don of the PayPal Mafia.
Nice.
And like all those photos, they're his supplicants there. Thiel became Facebook's first outside investor. He got 10% of that company for $500K. He sold the majority for over $1 billion. So he put a smooth 200X with a little bit left over, on the side there. He's a huge nerd. He's read Lord of the Rings over 10 times. Yes, I highlighted that part. Also, mathematics. He got first in a California-wide state mathematics competition just in middle school. Just close your eyes and think about a math competition in California. This guy won that. That's probably... Nerd. I would say that's probably the hardest state to compete in, just given all the universities there. What are you going to say?
Why is it the hardest state to compete in?
I think they excel mathematically, just given their, makeup of
they have a cultural advantage.
Good schools.
Yeah.
The good schools there.
They have a cultural advantage.
There is a cultural advantage there. Also, okay, here we go. Founders Fund. Let's see. What is the early investor in? Airbnb, LinkedIn, Yammer, Yelp, SpaceX, Spotify. This right here, Salesforce. So, the guy knows what he's talking about. Also, there's a whole Hulk Hogan thing. We won't get into that. But this man bought Bitcoin in 2014. So he sells Facebook shares for $1 billion 2012, buys Bitcoin in 2014. Whoa. And then he catches the top and sells for over almost $2 billion. Or
did he make the top?
Potentially. Was he on the phone with Vitalik? I don't know. But so the man definitely knows how to get in and out of the market. But let me say something else. How many Bitcoin OG whales that were buying in 2012, buying in 2014, buying in 2015 are buying within the last 18 months? Who of those whales, how many of those bought in 22?
Couldn't tell you. Yeah, barely
none.
any.
They hodl, they sit on it, they got their old wallets, you know, I still got 20,000 Bitcoin and I just sell enough to fund my lifestyle. This man's a net buyer in 22 after selling it for billions. So the man is catching bottoms and catching tops. All right, let's get into the weeds of the story right here. So the VC firm Founders Fund by Peter Thiel have invested a substantial amount between the summer and autumn of it's actually 22, not 23. They got that year wrong there. And they already bought some in 2014. Then they sold before the crashes there. And then they started buying Bitcoin below 30K in the following months. Additional Bitcoin and ETH were purchased. They don't know the exact DCA average there, but, you know, I would assume, you know, got some pretty good prices right there. Did he get any under 20K? That's the real question there. And Ether, I mean, that was a really good time to buy then, around then. So below 2K. So not as high up on his Ether as he is versus Bitcoin there. But the man just put in $200 million into Bitcoin. I might have to do a video. There's some pretty fascinating excerpts from, you know, 2016, 2017, him talking about Bitcoin. I'm just bullish on this man net buying Bitcoin. Huge in Silicon Valley. I think this will reverberate and you will see more and more adoption.
Yeah, and I think there's even, I think, a lot more to the story too with just who Peter Thiel is. Because of course he's...
You talk about Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan?
Oh, no, he funded the Hulk Hogan lawsuit, Gawker.
I didn't even know that.
Peter Thiel tape. Yeah, because they outed him.
No, I was going to talk about, you know, obviously he's the co-founder of Palantir too. So this tells us that, which if you guys don't know.
The Seeing Stones from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's like you have, and if you guys don't know what Palantir is, like this is a company that was funded and built essentially by In-Q-Tel, which was developed by the former CIA director.
Did Palantir make Pal World?
I don't think so.
No, they didn't.
I don't think so. But hey, there's sweatshops involved. Maybe there's some crossover there.
Hey, I like that.
Whoa, but we have In-Q-Tel's mission, guys. What's to identify like national security interests. So what I look at when I see Peter Thiel like investing into these cryptocurrencies, whether it was in 2013, 2014, this is someone that has a lot of inside sources and knowledge within these intelligence communities. And if they're starting to approach and purchase Bitcoin, it's not necessarily a threat against national security in my perspective, even though it does bring up a lot of that discussion. There's a lot of threats to that with illicit activities, but there is even more in the US dollar. It goes to show that if this is somebody who is funded by these same intelligence communities, providing them these data analytics, he has the data that shows that Bitcoin is going to continue to succeed in the future. So it's really bullish. I don't know how that makes you feel. If it makes you feel uncomfortable that that's where this source comes from, but that is why that makes me bullish on the outcome of what Bitcoin's going to do in the next decade. All
right. Well, I'm pretty bullish. What's your broad thoughts? Will we see a reverberation of Silicon Valley billionaires? We're not talking about, I was a Facebook employee. I got $12 million. Now we're talking about people with billions of dollars. He's roughly worth $10 billion. The SpaceX, the PayPal mafia, all the SpaceX pals. Will this create a domino effect of Silicon Valley billionaires buying more Bitcoin?
If they make it cool.
If they make it cool. Can Peter Thiel make it cooler than Jack Dorsey can make it cool?
I think Elon Musk made it cool.
No, I don't know. But
he is friends with Elon Musk, so...
Yeah, Elon, Jack Dorsey, Peter Thiel. I mean, all these people, they talk, they walk around in the same circles. Yeah. But speaking of, big money coming into Bitcoin, nearly $40 billion flows into Bitcoin in a day as the bullish cycle begins here. The market cap raced from $945 billion to $982 billion in a matter of 24 hours. We were live. It felt very, very bullish. I know we were all pretty excited about the pump here, but where are we at right now? In fact, we have someone in the wings might be able to help.
It'd be a great question for Kelly.
The charts right here. Kelly, he says it is tinnitus. He was a former DJ. I know.
It's not tinnitus?
I know. Yeah, I know you're familiar with that term.
Here's the deal. And I have tinnitus. I do have tinnitus, and all of us say tinnitus, but apparently the correct way, and this is stupid to me. If everybody calls it tinnitus, how can the correct way be tinnitus? But let's talk about these charts. We got some chopping around going on. And by the way, anybody that's been in the BitLab Discord, we talked about this. I posted this about us before the breakdown on the price. And I gave a little description as to why I was thinking that we may be testing down to this level and potentially lower. But what do the charts show? What's going on? Here we go. I want to point out really quick before we dive into, the analysis of why it dropped, that everybody sees this price action that we just had to the upside and they're just expecting up and away. But it's important that you understand, all of us, when we're looking at a chart, price doesn't go straight up or straight down. In fact, what happens is when we do get a straight up for a short period of time, we see on a regular basis, we get these periods of, sideways chop that happen each time after these large impulses to the upside. And then also, what is this? Large impulse to the downside, sideways, large impulse to the upside, basically sideways on a slightly up trajectory, large impulse, sideways, large impulse to the downside, sideways. And now what do we get? Another large impulse to the upside. So it kind of makes sense right now that we're getting a little bit of chop in the market, and we can see this reflected here on the liquidation map. If we go to the 4 hours right here, 20 million here on Bitcoin and Ethereum. This was very similar to yesterday when we had, these are longs being liquidated, moving to the downside. Yesterday on that big move up, we had about 25 to 28 million on each of these on that move to the upside. So we're seeing a basically flushing out of everybody buying hope or selling fear. And this is, unfortunately, this is kind of what we want to see. We want to see these liquidations because, unfortunately, it does mean people lost some money. But what it means is it brings the market back into a healthy sort of correlation. In addition to that, you mentioned this yesterday, Josh, we got back up here into the over 90% range of people in profit. When we get these very high periods of people in profit, that's that sort of that frothiness, that greed that you were talking about also. And this is represented in the actual on-chain data. Everybody's in profit. Markets don't tend to have everybody in profit, which is up here, or everybody at loss. And so it kind of makes sense. And there's, we're at a key level still. We're still within that golden pocket range. And so when we're looking at the chart, I just want to point out these large moves like we see like this is what's known as an inefficiency in price action because there's no sort of stopping points along the way. And so I was basically considering yesterday when I was seeing this push up and chop sideways, at first we want to see it's a bull flag and then we want to see it a channel. But then when we're looking at this inefficiency, we want to ask that at some point we want to see on any chart when price goes up, we want to see a rise, retrace, continuation. And this can take many different shapes. In the case of where we're at right now, this is essentially forming this sort of Bart Simpson pattern, which tends to happen when you get a lot of liquidations like we see right here. Then we get a lot of liquidations to the downside. So if we look at this on the 15-minute basis, there's a number of signs in this chart that were letting us know. Everybody wants to now say it's because of the CPI print. Well, when we're looking at this, especially with the BitLab trading stack on, I just want you to notice on this basically period of time right here with the price action chopping sideways, I want you to notice that we have this very sharp impulse to the upside, less sharp. All of a sudden it's starting to lay over. Not only is it starting to lay over, meaning the bullish momentum is weakening in each progressive sort of attempt. We also lost this trend signal line. Now we're coming back up. We test it. And in testing this trend signal line on the BitLab trading stack, we also formed bearish divergence. These tops angled to the upside. The data signals, the stochastics and the RSI angled to the downside. And then what do we get? A breakdown, retest, and then continuation to the downside. So I'm not necessarily looking at this and thinking, oh, this has to break down from here. We essentially want to see if we are bullish, we want to see a bounce from here. Likely rejection at the 49,250, which is the VWAP here on the BitLab trading stack. And then on the subsequent pullback, we want to really watch where the bulls come in and defend the price action. If we come back down and test this and lose this, then I do think we are going to ultimately likely test down here into this $47,000 range. In addition to all this, we also see on the liquidation levels here on high block, we've got a pretty, characterized zone right here with this, bright colors. You don't need to know this with the super technical data. Bright color down here, no bright color directly above us. This is saying that there's likely a sort of magnet potential liquidity sweep to come down into this level. This is 48,100. If we correlate that on this would be this level right here. If we cannot hold this level again, I do think we're coming down to this $47,000 level. Similarly, on all these other altcoins, look at this. Ethereum's got a bit of an M formation here. We've got Avalanche also M formation, Chainlink M formation, Cardano M formation, and also a little bit of a lower low on the candle bodies. So I do think this is not bearish, everybody. We have to remember, as amazing as it is that we hit 50,000, actually broke through $50,000 yesterday, let's not forget, we all want opportunities to take the most advantage of this market. And so having this rise retrace, the retrace is where we need to identify at what levels we're going to be stacking into. And last thing I want to say to everybody, that big the big deal that we've been doing for the last week or so, it's going to be expiring here in I'm not going to tell you, it's 24 to 48 hours. The link is there in the chat, the top of the live chat. You get access to the premium Discord. You get, and after that, if you want to sign up for the upgrade, the BitLab trading stack, the courses, all of it, the best deal that we've ever offered. Come and join us in there. Josh is doing a lot more classroom sessions. I'm in there doing live sessions. We're sharing charts. Yeah. We got the courses. We got the indicators. So get involved with us, baby.
I wanted to say off that with Kelly, we'll be doing I believe, mining class with Clore.ai, which is a project we call that's up almost 100%. So I'm going to be showing how to actually mine that here soon with Nick with an exclusive. We got also a couple other exclusive videos with Bitcoin Layer 2s and actually some hopefully whitelist giveaways for that Discord. So guys, make sure you guys get in there. That is Discord exclusive. That link is in the description. You're going to want to come see me and Kelly. We also do karaoke nights on Fridays where we sing Frozen together. It's a great time in there as we freeze each other assets like Ukraine if you decide not to join their military.
I'm going to sing some Selena.
That got dark quick.
OG Selena, though, not Gomez.
Thank you for joining
Kelly, man. Appreciate it.
I love you guys. Everybody hit the like button. Don't get chopped out right now because you're scared for the little down price action. It's opportunity. lab.bitlabacademy.com/Josh.
All right, and bro astrologer, I'm gonna heat up some of those wings from that Swift party last night or 2 nights ago. Appreciate it, man. I was wondering on Blofin, folks, we're gonna do the Blofin giveaway. I was looking, why didn't I get this trade in on Blofin? And then I looked because that part with the indicator.
Can we get a whale noise? I would love a whale noise for when we do these.
I tried. But I looked, it happened at 4:30 in the morning. So those really, sometimes for those DGens staying late up night, I hope you got in that trade. I didn't get in on that trade. We still got the streak of green trades on Blofin. Speaking of green trades on Blofin, let's do the giveaway, right? Do we have the details here with Blofin?
Yeah, hang on. It is Coinface.
Coinface with the number Coinface was the winner. Do we have his P&L? Or anything?
Yeah, it is 1,420%.
All right, he made 1,400%. Nice little casual 15x. We like a casual 15x. You know what? You trade $20, 15. I mean, you're making $300 there. Imagine if he traded $100, $200. I don't know what that mad lad did. He probably did some 75x or something, right?
That's probably like 250x. He's like max out $1.
He's 25x.
25x.
That's not even
1,400%. A 15x off 25x leverage. Goated there. Good job, Coinface. We're going to go ahead and message you, and I think we got everything handling on the back end.
Yeah, so send us a DM on Twitter, and then that's how we'll get you your money. And so, DZ, just explain to them again how the money thing works with Blofin.
All right, and so with Blofin, we're going to go and give you 500 USDT. It is like casino chips right here. So go ahead, play with your casino chips, and all winnings you get off those chips are yours to keep. Or you just go YOLO and just put it in the risky thing. Again, it's casino money right here. It's just house chips. So you get the house chips, throw it in, and you get to keep everything that you get off profits off that after 30 days, if I'm correct, right?
Yep.
And you know what? It's a leap year, so you get a month and a day. That's right, 29 days in February. So over a month, at least for this one of the 12 months there. So pretty cool stuff right there. All right, well, so congrats, Coinface. And you know what? That's pretty cool. You just got 500 USDT. I feel pretty good for you there. All right, let's just see what he does next time, because now it's house money. Yep. He might go up to 50x, y'all.
Wow.
So y'all gonna have to really step it up if you're gonna beat his 1,400% gains there. But speaking of 1,400% gains, when you think of gains, you better think of Michael Saylor, the Chad of Bitcoin, they call him. The executive chairman of Microstrategy says his company is rebranding the Bitcoin development company during CNBC interview. We kind of already covered this. I just want to, give you a little bit of a reminder here. This is going to bring us into this. Get ready for a FOMO rally in Bitcoin. Bitcoin will reach a record level. Like he said, there is not enough Bitcoin for the demand that we're going to see. And we've been talking about the supply shock, how it could be impending here. Well, Berenstein Bear, some say Berenstein Bear, analysts stated that further rises will come in after Bitcoin, saying the further rises will come, saying the ETFs are going to increase the price. Analysts said that an ETF-focused market will create FOMO in investors, and therefore they believe that Bitcoin's strongest period has not yet come. I would believe, I think 2025 is going to be even better than 2024. We believe the capital coming to the ETFs comes primarily from Bitcoin supporters. Skeptics, however, remain cautious. Secondly, it seems to be coming from beginner investors who are eager to learn more about Bitcoin ETFs, even if they're not interested in them. At this point, our first prediction was that the value of Bitcoin would rise rapidly after the halving. However, with the unprecedented success of ETFs, we now expect a significant rally in the Bitcoin ahead of the halving. And right now we're 60 days away.
Yeah, we're coming up to that halving, which is, I'm very curious, chat. Let me know which altcoins you're looking to accumulate on this dip, because we're going to get a bit of a pullback right now. There's a lot of cryptos out there that we're going to be talking about, like, of course, Clore in the mining video with the Discord here today. We've been picking up a lot of Bitcoin layer 2s. I'm just curious what you guys are watching for, what we should potentially be watching for, things that we might have missed. Give me those, favorite altcoin predictions here coming up in the next few months. That does lead us, though, into why these markets are looking a little kind of red today.
Well, what do you have? I was going to jump into the
U.S. economy. A little bit. You got the CPI up or no?
I don't. I think it's only on yours.
Yeah, so the CPI, guys, index came out today, and that is where we're seeing a bit of fluctuations in that market. Prices rose more than expected in January as inflation won't go away. Unfortunately, when you print $9 trillion, it's really hard to get that inflation to start disappearing.
What?
So
No, man, it's corporations. It's the candy manufacturer's fault.
Yeah, shrinkflation. The ice cream bins are smaller.
My sweet tarts are smaller.
Well, this consumer price index here, guys, increased 0.3% in January. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported on a 12-month basis that came out to 3.1%, down from 3.4% in December. And of course, the markets were actually anticipating, I believe it was 0.29% or 2.9%, sorry. So we did get a jump of about 0.2%. I'm starting to do this math in my head here. And that is really what made these markets react negatively. So stocks, NASDAQ, Dow Jones, all dropped about 1% to 2% off this announcement this morning. Bitcoin obviously is highly correlated. There's a lot of money flowing through. But the takeaway is what me and DZ have been covering for the last few weeks, and is why you guys need to smash that like button, close the gap on the beautiful 800 of you guys watching with those like buttons, because of course you want to get to the 350 likes. We can show you guys a very cool website that can really help you navigate these rough winds and these rough markets during these times of turbulation. So make sure you guys get that to 350 likes. I'll show you that secret website at the end of this. But what's really important, guys, is the fact that Wall Street is here. They love Bitcoin. I just made a video that went out last night where Anthony Pompliano, I always forget how to pronounce that, but the Pomp, we're just going to say the Pomp, talks about how Bitcoin has seen 4 ETFs now reach billions of inflow, which is the first time in history. And it's not just that one is hitting the first time in history, it's 4 at this point. So Wall Street wants Bitcoin, that supply is draining, that demand is rising. That's incredibly bullish for the longevity of Bitcoin.
And also looking at the inflows, we'll keep an eye out on that. We don't have the data just yet, but we'll be looking at the inflows for yesterday as soon as that comes in. Might be coming in briefly here, but we actually have a plant right here. Some say we have a CIA plant as well. We're going to talk a little about the co-chair of the AI caucus raises blockchain as a way to protect data privacy. Did you want to step up? Mr. Arms is up in arms over this latest upheaval right here. So I don't know. I kind of read the story here. Here we have someone who looks like Super Dave. No, this is Representative Don Bayer, as a Democrat out of Virginia. And then the ongoing State of the Net 2024 conference is happening right now. It's largely slated to address AI and privacy, both of which are going to be huge areas for Congress this year. But in the keynote speech, Dan Bayer, who's the co-chair of the AI caucus in Congress, raised blockchain technology as a possible way to protect data privacy, even as the technology has fallen out of the spotlight in Washington since the collapse of FTX. This Bill Foster, Democrat of Illinois, I've been pushing hard for a national digital signature that is unique and unbreakable as a way of the first step towards protecting your own individual privacy and perhaps linking it with the blockchain so we don't own, so that we own it and get paid for it, said buyer at the conference. Now, Mr. Arms, I see this and I just see they're trying to trick the populace into we're tracking you, but it's for you. Is that what, am I incorrect in this assessment? To me, this is saying, oh yeah, you know, we're definitely going to track you harder, but it's better for privacy if we track you. How does that make sense?
It doesn't. And it's really tough. We should all be kind of seeing red flags, the fact that they want to regulate AI as well. I mean, so is it really going to be for our benefit that they're regulating AI? You've noticed as soon as some of the cats were out of the bag and things that AI was stating on ChatGPT, people were like, oh, it's actually stating certain facts that we might not like. So we need to start regulating that. And we all know that politicians love to build moats around technologies.
Yeah. And they bring the drawbridge up. It's a regulatory capture. And for those who don't know, it's when you get so big, you know, your Facebook size, your Apple size, you just make it so difficult. No startup can ever compete with you. Yeah. You'd have to have, you know, $1 billion just to start that startup that used to cost $20 million, and they'll lobby Congress to make it effectively. You raise the moat, or you create a moat where you don't have competition.
What's the saying? Capture. It's like you can't make a monopoly, but you can make plain monopoly very expensive.
Yes, yes, that is a great way to put it. It's like you raise up the guardrails where you can't have competition. So we're seeing that happen, right?
And it should be in light of the elections coming up, because if you guys remember during the New Hampshire primary, there was an AI phone call that went out to a bunch of people that used Joe Biden's voice. Yeah. And I always tell people, okay, as soon as it becomes an election thing, regulation is going to very quickly come. I don't think they want to make the same mistake in Congress that they did, quote unquote, with Facebook and the Cambridge Analytica stuff, or even before that in 2012.
The Russiagate.
Correct. Like everything.
Controversy.
Correct. Everyone was caught off guard with how influential Facebook and tracking would be. Now, I mean, AI, you can do so much when it comes to elections.
You can actually make the P tape.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you can. You can get it out there before anyone has time to say, is this real or not? Right? Especially to a populace that might not know.
I mean, yeah, that balloon is popped.
What's crazy is even with the example you just gave, what if that stuff comes out a day before an election? Yeah. Right? Or so we have even early elections starting as soon as September. So you could be affecting people's votes as early as September in the November elections. And AI can do it instantly. And by the time it's retracted, people have already cast their votes. So this is a great backdoor. Anytime Congress is looking at regulating AI, the devil's in the details. And you guys are spot on. Like, we should be suspicious. Even in my home state of Florida, they're creating a bill to look at how we should approach AI. Their version is hopefully going to be that we shouldn't regulate it at all. So even like with blockchain and different like cryptocurrencies, you might find a situation where the federal government is trying to push one agenda, and then you're going to have states saying, actually, we don't want that. And the states may compete to be a hub for AI themselves. Right. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Now, Shake and Bake has a oft used response here. If you have nothing to hide, you should be okay with it.
I know.
Why do you care? Are you a criminal?
It's always the worst argument. And I'm surprised that argument's even still around and that people still use it.
Well, I think it's facetiously here, but some people it's used earnestly. So how do you say to someone who's using that earnestly?
Using like AI earnestly?
No,
or what
like,
do you mean?
hey, man, you don't have anything to hide. What are you, a criminal? You know, they're using that argument earnestly. You know, what's your response? What is the response to that?
Do you have a right to privacy? So even if you're a completely honest person, should your entire life be exposed? So the argument is kind of like a whataboutism. Oh, well, I live a perfectly good life. No one in the world does. And actually every day you're breaking a certain tax law. That's why our tax code's so complicated. So no one's innocent. So the real crux of the position is, do you think the government should have access to every facet of your life and be able to turn it on or off? Because that's what it leads to.
Hey, Sam, I heard that term put, when you say if you have nothing to hide, then you should be okay with, not having any privacy. That is the language of an abuser.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It is. Because we have such an oppressed versus oppressor narrative being pushed in 2024. You just latch onto that narrative. Yeah, I like that. You're an oppressor?
It's a good argument that an oppressor would want to use, because kind of like even we talked about, like thinking past the sale, it already assumes that, oh, so
It's
there's an issue
happened.
with you.
Yeah, man. That's a very, very, very good point there.
You taught me that point. So
yeah, someone else was bringing up, not the unpop the piss balloon. What was it? I'm joking. Oh, yeah, the best response, Nunya. And Shake and Bake said, I am always serious. This was not a joke.
I know. But, you know, there are people who I do still hear that argument. I really do. And I still hear it when talking to representatives, because a lot of times we're for transparency for our public officials.
Yeah.
Public officials will throw that back in your face and say, well, shouldn't we all be for transparency then? Right? Not knowing the difference between being elected and making decisions in the country and being a private citizen.
Well, speaking of private citizens, we're going to talk about your favorite private citizen with this article. SEC takes cybersecurity seriously, Gensler says in a new letter. Here he is pantomiming. Who knows what he's throwing some guesses here. So he's claiming the federal agency takes its cybersecurity obligations seriously in a letter following last month's SimSwap attack after they had a little egg on their face after they got hacked. In the letter, he listed a complete timeline of the SimSwap attack while assuring the SEC takes its cybersecurity operations seriously. And if you didn't know, they were hacked. SEC Gov was hacked, and then they falsely said the Bitcoin ETF was approved. A lot of trades were initiated, and I think hundreds of millions of dollars were liquidated. You know, some were saying, you know, if you're the agency responsible for guarding over cybersecurity, maybe you should have your own cybersecurity. I know it sounds crazy. It's almost like Fort Knox has all the gold stolen, but then they're trying to tell you how to store your gold. Well, that doesn't make any sense at all, right?
Yeah.
But House Republicans signed a letter here, including Patrick Mahenry. I want to know your takes on him. And they heavily criticized Gensler for his irresponsibility. We're greatly concerned by the conduct in this case. It is unconscionable that any federal agency, especially one involved in highly consequential legal procedures and one that under Gary's leadership has often pursued its own regulatory mission through enforcement actions rather than rules, could operate in such an unethical and unprofessional manner. But will anything come from this? You were, you know, saying, well, what ends up happening? You know, you're using that filter, and I've been thinking about that a lot. Well, what ends up happening here?
The hard part for me in this whole debacle, by the way, is figuring out, which is always my question with government, is was it incompetence or was it on purpose? Because I have this idea that because someone like Gensler might knew ETFs were coming, he could fake a leak, kill the momentum of the space. So our industry got no euphoria from winning that battle because we got the leak and said, oh, it's approved. Then that was taken away. And by the time it was approved, we're all kind of lackluster.
Yeah, so you got the leak like Cambridge Analytica got the leak. Yeah. So
it's
like, all tying together.
So it's like, well, what was the point? So they took that win away from us. And that is a strategic way that you can take a win away from somebody, is how you present that win. So if it was an incompetence, I think that's what they were doing. If it was incompetence, exactly, Congress should be investigating how someone who is the head of the SEC is so incompetent. Where is he directing his resources? As we discussed yesterday, of course, they could try measures. They could bring him back to Congress. They could grill him, make him look like an idiot, which they have before. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to either rely on him getting impeached, which would be a whole political process, or you have to wait on the next president or for Gensler's term to end in 2025.
So I don't think we had the opportunity to touch on where you see Gensler actually heading after this, because obviously Gary Gensler has been trending for years at this point, it feels like. You know, what's that actual process in getting him removed, and where do you see him in the next 2 to 3 years? Is he going to be pushing for a treasury position, or is he more likely doing this because of the power orientation that he is building? He's going to move to an asset management firm like BlackRock.
I think if you look at Gensler's career, he's just a sellout. We all know, in my opinion, that he's a very smart man and that he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I think he knows exactly what he's doing. You watch his MIT classes, he's not an idiot.
People underestimate him so much. If you listen to MIT and just look at the fact, the youngest VP of Goldman Sachs history, without, it doesn't seem like it's cronyism, right? His last name isn't Goldman. Although, you know, everything he touches turns to the opposite of gold.
So he'd be on some elites. No, that was.
But yeah, you cannot be a VP. All right, one, it's almost impossible to just get a job on Wall Street. You know, they take the elite of the elite from Harvard, Wharton, you know, all the business schools there, and then to become the youngest VP. And then if you listen to his MIT talks, now take away the Algorand speech, he's a very, very bright individual.
I think it's very possible that if Elizabeth Warren is very influential after 2024, that he'll probably stay involved in the political process, whether that's the SEC or something else like a treasury position. They always move in their own networks and try to keep them in those networks. If things don't go as they plan, I have no doubt that he would then finish his term in 2025 if he doesn't get thrown out by whoever the next president is, and just take a board seat at a BlackRock, right? Because that is kind of the reward for approving the ETF. And that is what normally happens.
And he has everyone's phone number and email ready to go. Just
Correct.
Like, oh, you need to talk to like Jay Clayton or something like that. Yeah, I gotcha. But we do have a couple more political stories I want to get your take on here. One, there was this clip. I know we were wanting to play this. They're not confessing; they are bragging. Do you remember what this this group is here? It might. Here, let's see. Do they have sound?
No, it looks like you have to restart it real quick.
I did that already. I could do it again, but it's basically a central bank telling you what they're going to do as far as, oh yeah, we just print money, and then they kind of laugh about it. We just kind of print it out of thin air.
The fiscal challenges, etc., that are there. So very focused on being cost effective. We actually fund ourselves and then work out what dividend is needed to pay.
We actually fund ourselves.
So we kind of work, but it's a great business to be in central.
It's a great business to be in when you pay yourself.
Banking. Print money and people believe it, and money and people believe it.
What did he just say?
Print money and people believe it.
We print money and people believe it.
Print money and people believe it, and
straight up bunch of old ass boomers in a room going, just laughing because they know no one's going to do anything, know. So what is the issue with this? Why are central banks so powerful? And I mean, since the inception in 1913, when the first group of old ass white dudes got on the table and were like, you know what, we should control the money printer and force the majority of the population to inflate this currency, so they have to spend their money. Why are CBDCs trying to be established by these central banks, and why are they just laughing at us?
If you remember our conversation from yesterday, in a very real sense, all this falls within the current ideology of what these people just believe. Yeah. I mean, if you believe that the central banking system has worked since its inception, if you believe that Keynesian economics is correct, they're almost laughing because to them, this is probably just obvious knowledge. And there's something to laugh at because it's like they're stating the obvious. It's like stating the sky's blue or gray or whatever. It's just so open and out there. We're going to look at them and say, are you insane that you're being so open about this? And they would just look back and be like, what do you mean? It's always been this way. This is how the world works. This is how the banking system works. Of course, we could get into how we've gotten here and all that. But I think the real key is these people don't see what they're doing is wrong. And so they see this CBDC as the natural extension of their current belief system, which, because they believe it now to be correct, the CBDC will necessarily be correct as well. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it completely does. Bob from accounting pointed out, said that's a beep fake because the leaders wouldn't do that to the people. I know he's 100% joking in the chat here, but that's what I think so scary. And that's why people should be scared of the way that certain administrations are approaching legislation and litigation in cryptocurrency, because it's not like this is something we need to be worried about. It's something that's already taking place and something we should be scared about, right? Now, I'm not trying to obviously incite fear-monger on those tactics, but you have to wake up and realize that these CBDC and narratives have been being pushed. Whether it's not in the United States, because we have people like the Florida Blockchain Association and Sam here actually that have pushed bills to prevent that. But the U.S. government's been funding the DIIA, which is an application in Ukraine where they are glorifying the fact that 19 million citizens are now going to be utilizing a digital app for all of their documents, their currencies, etc., which is the direct establishment of a CBDC with a new label. And so, whether you believe it or not, you're like, no, our president, our administration would never do that. They are already funding and building it. It's not like this is some conspiracy. It's the development exists and it's already continued to persist. And is why probably moving towards the election cycles, I don't even know, what are your overall thoughts on that process that's taking place? Are we screwed? Is it too late? Is it one of those scenarios that there's no way around this at this point? We just have to take it head on and we needed to start pushing up new guardrails to prevent them taking over stable coins next? What's our next step?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever too late. I think even given the app in Ukraine, it combines 120 different government agencies into one application. So we have to decide. But what's tough is if I were to tell you that idea and say, what if that reduces government overhead? Is there something wrong with making government more efficient? What if I don't have to pay as many taxes? This isn't going to happen. But what if I don't have to pay as many taxes because technology is innovating government out of a job? That's an argument that tech people say all the time and love. So I can use that same idea and say, okay, well, I've created an app with a CBDC. I'm actually making your life more efficient. I'm cutting out government, even though it doesn't, right? Because it's secretly a way to become more authoritarian. But this is how some of these people are thinking. So you kind of have to separate the ideas of, do I want government to be more efficient, but how does that efficiency then become authoritarian?
Well, what if it's an external app? So we have WeChat, right? So it's used for everything. You pay your bills, you message your friends, and you're playing dominoes or whatever. But it was, I mean, you could essentially say CCP, clear access, backdoor. They're monitoring everything. I would say there's two main competitors for an everything app in America. You have Amazon Prime. I don't know if you're aware, but the Prime team, every single product that is approved is under the, does it fit on the Prime umbrella? And so the Prime app is they're going to try to make a super app eventually. The other competitor besides Bezos, I would say, is Elon Musk and X. You know, he wants to get into payments. He already has video.
Oh, by the way, I think it was Arizona or some state.
Okay, so
he already got his MTL.
Escaped Delaware. Okay, is that what you're saying? All right.
Well, he got money transmitter license so that they can start doing transactions.
Okay, with all, I think they're at 30 something at this point. So yeah, a lot of licenses there. Are you worried about a backdoor through an American app where all of a sudden, you know, hey, we're all using Amazon, we're all using X, whatever it might be. Then 10 years later, oh, you're already in the ecosystem. It's already a monopoly, and now there's a CBDC. Is that a fear?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the best ways that it would happen, is the free market will just crave pure efficiency, and that pure efficiency could come from a private CBDC that is just quicker, has all the benefits of being able to track what I buy so that Amazon can give me an ad on what I bought and give better recommendations through surveillance capitalism. And then,
but it's tailored to you.
I know,
surveillance that sounds like authoritarianism.
So,
surveillance.
Surveillance. You've never heard that term before?
No, I haven't. It is authoritarianism.
I mean, well, it's authoritarianism by using the free market, right, and free market incentives, which is tough because of a free market guy. You're like, well, what the hell do I do now?
I guess you could classify states in China.
Yeah, exactly.
Capitalism.
So I think absolutely you're spot on. Is we're going to have the fear from government side saying, hey, why don't we start giving all our handouts through a CBDC? And if you want your handout, it has to be through a CBDC. I've heard
that fear as well. Oh, that Stimmy check, it's only a CBDC.
You have to download our app if you want to get the Stimmy check.
Ask yourself, how many of your coworkers, how many of your neighbors, how many of your peers would download that app to get the $600 airdrop?
Especially if times are hard. If we're in another depression, recession, and that's your only avenue.
I mean, you can't go to work.
I wanted to pull up the DIA really quick just so people, because we haven't shown the images yet. I want to show you guys that this is legit. This is real. This is a real thing. So the DIA in DC, this is for Ukraine. And as Samuel just mentioned, for 120 countries, bringing them under one umbrella, under one government, it wasn't even developed or funded or created by Ukraine. It's by the USAID, Visa, and Google, with the subdivisions of Eurasia and UK aid as well, which are kind of all tied together. And if you look through this, DIA is this is from the USAID government website, guys, is the groundbreaking and award-winning mobile application that connects 19 million Ukrainians with more than 120 government services, dozens of digital documents, and has distinguished Ukraine as a world leader in e-government innovation. So they're trying to pivot this as Ukraine is like this innovative, second world country that's starting to establish itself, and it's pro-democracy, and it's breaking away from the, it's in the middle of a liberation against Russia. And the reality is this is completely funded by the US to bring all these government control powers into one and now monitor those citizens. I mean, it's clear cutthroat. There's no way. This is surveillance capitalism at its finest that you're explaining, that we've seen established.
It's efficient.
But it's efficient. Yeah. And guess who it makes money, right? It's going to be, now the military industrial and all these companies that have been funding it.
Yep.
This was directly funded by them. There's no way around this, but people don't want to admit it. And it says it directly on their website.
Wait a minute. Would 120 agencies think of, we're going to have people building bridges and rebuilding hospitals and, replenishing bank. Oh man, just imagine the possibilities here. And at BlackRock, they wouldn't have any connection to any of these entities, correct? Right? It's totally separate. The Panama Papers was in 2016, and they've cleaned things up since then. Okay.
It's so funny you say that because as we speak, they partnered with the United States to actually bridge this to more countries. So DIA is now poised to be shared with countries around the world. And DC guys, us, the US, will offer an exclusive opportunity to see firsthand how its important tool is helping transform the way people connect with their governments.
So the CIA will test it in other countries and see, they'll do A/B testing to make sure they can really roll it out effectively on us 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I think the key now is let's just try to keep pushing the battle lines further and further because a lot can happen, from here to 20 years from now. Coinface. Yeah, we already got the Coinface. That was an accident, right? Okay. All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about politics? We got a couple things here we can mention. Well, Tether, speaking of stablecoins, Tether and Circle stablecoins dominating in Argentina. Looks like this isn't any kind of surprise, right? Argentina, they having a massive amount of inflation right now. Javier Milei, he's going in there. He's trying to fix things up. Before we get into the story, what's your Javier Milei thoughts? Not talking about his hair.
What are my thoughts on the president of Argentina?
Yes.
I think he's doing a really good job. I think the hardest part is figuring out, will he be able to survive his administration during the hard times? Because he's going to have to make a lot of hard decisions.
Are you saying like riding around in Dallas in a convertible situation?
No,
you're talking about
not
being
that
voted out.
Being voted out because he's cut a bunch of government bloat. He's cut a bunch of government agencies, right? All those people are now not going to be wanting to vote for him. We've already kind of seen his story play out before because you have the Kushner dynasty in Argentina, which has run things for a while. Before the Kushner, before him, it was Macri. Macri tried to do exactly what Milei is doing, where he said, we have too much government involved. He spent all this time reforming bureaucracy, trying to get big government down, which gave them a slight hit. By the time the growth came about, he was unelected, right? And so my hope is that he could stay the course, that things bounce back quick enough. He's interesting because even though people view him as kind of like libertarian or anarchist or whatever, he's already saying, I want to be closer to the US and closer to the dollar, actually, and actually talking about maybe that's how we can get ourselves out of this inflationary mess. So it's a really politically dynamic situation.
It is a mess. Just real quick, just highlight this. Inflation 2023, 211%. That is a mess.
Yeah, and I think that's my takeaway from this is despite people liking him or not, because they're going to label him as far right, like crazy conspirator, anarchist, like you get that liberal perspective on that industry, and this isn't, I'm taking the politics out of this.
There were mass protests in his country. They were bankers, but there are people who didn't like him.
What's
bankers,
the phrase in politics where like you got to fight fire with fire, essentially. Yeah. So like, even if it was that was the case, 200% inflation, it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, where you live in the world. You are screwed if you're not a part of that government or the people laughing behind the table saying that they own the money printer, right? You are done for. You have no savings, your money becomes valueless, and you are in a bad position in place. And so seeing that full transit over, I think we're actually going to start seeing this a little bit more in other countries, as we saw El Salvador is a great example with President Bukele, because we saw one of the most corrupted, criminal-oriented countries in the world with they have 6 million people. Yeah, it's a smaller country, but they went from one of the scariest places to visit with all-time high crimes to now one of the safest countries in the world, and they were trashed on by the IMF. They were trashed on by
our government.
By our own government.
Congress people are actually saying he's dangerous. That he's violating human rights. You have all these NGOs like Amnesty International saying that we're scared. The State Department has actually flagged El Salvador and going there. They didn't flag it before when there was all this crime, but they flagged it now, saying his authoritarian approach should be scared for Americans.
I'll pull up that famous photo,
too. And it's weird. He's all about freedom. He has a Bitcoin city being created. It's like...
Which there were protests and people burning Bitcoin machines when he first started all that as well.
I wonder who funded that.
I know.
I guarantee... I can't... We gotta be cautious. Yeah. There might be a world where Ned was... these NGOs receive certain funding and certain funding,
they were doing things like the human cost of El Salvador's massive gang crackdown. Just share this photo real quick. What about the human cost of, people just being extorted and, their children being abducted and, massive gang violence and shootouts in front of their homes? I would say there's a massive cost of that as well. But yeah, the coverage of El Salvador should have awoken a lot of people to these NGOs. And you just give a brief sentence or two. What is an NGO? What does non-governmental organization mean?
Normally a 501c3, normally a nonprofit that's used to funnel money. A lot of the times, big NGOs like an Amnesty International, for example, just become arms of the US government to essentially say we're giving aid to certain people that we like or approve of. And that's why a lot of times certain countries actually end up kicking out a lot of these nonprofit organizations, because at the end of the day, most of them, not all of them, are arms of the US government.
Okay, arms of the US government. Victoria Newland, she's got that way in there, way in there. We do have a little bit of crypto news. I want to cover a couple things here. CAPO just gave 4 altcoin rallies. Well, here's the thing. CAPO pointed out 4 altcoins that he's buying on.
Bearish.
Normally, that's what I'm saying. He's a reverse indicator. I don't know how I feel about this. So what are the 4 altcoins? We'll just get right into it. Uniswap, Sushi, Avalanche, and HBAR were the 4. I have exposure like 2 of these.
Man, we just thought HBAR was finally catching some legs.
Oh, man. Why did he do that?
This is the Jim Cramer of Twitter. Just for you, if you don't know who that is.
Also, Ether, we saw Ether up while Bitcoin was down. This could be one of the reasons Ether opens open interest on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, on track to hit fresh all-time high here. If I had to just give a brief summation here, I feel Wall Street and the savvy investors are taking a little bit of profit, and they're gearing up and they're loading their bags of ETH, getting ready for that ETH ETF pump that I don't think has happened yet, and I think will happen in the next 90 days. Mark my words here, ETH will pump in the next 90 days. It's going to shock people.
Market.
Maybe even 3K. I'm saying 3K in the next 100 days. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I got to be bold, man.
We're going to
favors the bold.
No, we're going to retest 45.
4,500 in 100 days?
4,500.
Buy Bitcoin half.
Yeah.
That's like buy Bitcoin half.
Wow. Okay, Nick is way more bullish than me.
I would say I think $3,000 is going to be a pretty significant number, but I think it can touch, if we get to 55K, 60K on Bitcoin by Bitcoin halving, it will touch like 3,200. Because we saw those, I think yesterday we were talking about that with the price predictions of like $4,000, because now we have like companies like Franklin Templeton, which used to be against ETF funds, are now joining the ETF race for Bitcoin. So there's a lot of speculation around May's ETF approvals, which we did a video on not too long ago on this channel as well.
And, we started the show, we were talking about Peter Thiel. We'll wrap it up here. I was talking about Peter Thiel. He's early investor in so many things. He got in at Facebook, he got out, he put it into Bitcoin 2014. He got out near the top, then he put in more money into Bitcoin. What are your thoughts about Peter Thiel? Nick said, very fascinating individual, is openly, gay libertarian. It comes off, it's pretty interesting there. I don't know what's happening here. What?
You got the music playing?
I was playing you out.
I think I can just hit X. Oh, you started playing it out.
Well, we got.
Well, you know what? That's all we got, folks. We got played out.
You can't leave it off on that.
Tune in next time.
You made it awkward. He's like,
Sorry.